All right, now to Americans for Tax Reform Director Mattie Duppler on how we better get a handle on this, because we are quickly losing our solvency and our very country if we do not. We're going to get into this later in the show, Mattie, but I'm not at all mystified by growing indications the world is losing faith in us, certainly as a haven for cash and certainly as a business haven, period. Yeah. But it's because of these kind of games. But we don't do the simple things that businesses do, that families do. Why not?
Yeah, Neil, I love this segment for so many reasons. The first, though, is the transparency angle that you were just covering. The notion that the government doesn't know how much it's spending and the taxpayers who are funding the government don't know how much we're spending is a huge problem. And you're right. If this were a business, a privately run business, that would be absolutely unacceptable. And take transportation, for instance. Transportation, we're wondering why we have crumbling roads and where's the money to fix it, and people argue we need more of a gas tax to fix it. The problem is that all the gas tax money goes into a trust fund, and then all the appropriators pilfer it for their own pet projects. So you've got train museums, you've got beautification paths and bike roads being built with money that is supposed to be going to highways. So the problem is the money may be there, but it's being misused because there is no transparency and there's no way really to stop it at this point.
Mattie, I'm a big believer, as are you, because you're way ahead of this versus most people in that fine town you call home. And it's the idea, just shed some light on it.
Right.
If people knew that this was going on, because a lot of, good, hardworking American taxpayers, they have no idea. But if you just shed the light of that, did you know this is where your money going when it came to this, all this infrastructure, demand for more dough? Did you know that we do have a lot of money going to this already, but it's been going over here? When I brought that to some viewers light here on this show and in my Fox News show, they were startled. They couldn't believe the numbers and said, boy, if your numbers are right, Neil, our roads should be paved with gold, our bridges should be supported by kryptonite, and yet that's not the case.
No, it's absolutely true. And, little fun story here. Back in 2006, there was legislation that was passed at the federal level that required federal spending to go online. The idea was that we'd create a website and you'd at least be able to track contracts and some grants, getting at the notion that transparency is a good thing and taxpayers, can go online and check their bank statement. Why can't they do it for the federal government? Now, there are a couple senators who sponsored this bill. One was Senator Tom Coburn and one was then Senator Barack Obama. Now, remember, this is the guy who promised accountability, transparency in government, and he had the right idea back in 2006 before he started running for president, and that sense got out the door once we had the stimulus, which also he promised would be tons of transparency. You'd be able to track, I believe he said, every dime of your dollar, and of course we saw that wasn't the case. So the federal government has kind of made overtures to the notion of transparency, but of course it never actually materializes, because where's the incentive? These agencies, as you were discussing earlier, don't have an incentive to cut money, because when they stop spending, they don't get that money back. And we should be looking at those kinds of appropriating rules.
I think we should just look at the idea that, look, we don't care if you're going to spend this money. I mean, I do care whether you appropriated it or not. Here's what I'm saying is, let's find out what you're spending it on. Let's find out what you're spending it on. Mattie, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
Well, as Mattie pointed out, here's why this is so important. The way we are going, folks, the world doesn't think we remotely are important. Why we rank 12th on a list, I'm not kidding you. We used to rule.